Bonjour! Welcome to a new segment here in my channel, which is Catching Up with my friends. And for my pilot episode, I have here with me the beautiful Mechelle Eguia.
Hi! Welcome to Amazing Jane's channel, and thank you for having me here, Kat.
So, Michelle and I were classmates in college from our second year until we graduated. And since then, I have been lucky enough to call her not just as a classmate, a friend, but more like a sister. How are you feeling today, me?
Wonderful, wonderful, and grateful, I would say. It's been quite a productive day for me, and I'm very happy to see you. It's been a while.
Yes, true, it's been a while. Now, before we proceed on our topic today, Michelle recently guested at a podcast of her good friend too, and there she talked about her childhood years up until becoming a beauty queen. Today, I've been blessed to have her in my channel and talk about her career journey. So, tell us about the time where you get to decide which college course you were going to take.
Actually, for the decision to which college course I would take, I didn't really have much choice back then. One of the prizes that I got after the Miss the Norte was actually the scholarship in DMC. And at the time, I wasn't really sure if I would be able to go to college. So it was also one of my motivation to join the pageant because I knew that they were offering scholarship to the winners. So
Yeah.
that was the main factor of why I joined the pageant. And thankfully, we were offered, not offered, but like it was part of the prize.
Mm.
At the time, I wanted to pursue international relations, but it was only available in IIT in Mindanao, and it wasn't possible for me to take that course because it was too far. I don't know anyone there. My relatives won't allow me to travel and study there and live there for like that long. So the next choice was mass communications. But then in DMC, I think like there wasn't much offers with regards to mass communications.
Yeah.
So the third choice was I felt like HRIM was the more among the other courses that were offered in DMC was like more aligned to what I really wanted. It's more of like interacting with people. It's like international relations, mass
Yeah.
communications.
Mm.
So HRIM, and then they really had a really good. We were the pioneers, so we had a really good like facility. I
Yes.
think it was one of the best in the region at that time. So it was really impressive. It was an easy choice for me when I was presented with like all the degrees or the courses that were available in DMC at the time. So HRIM was like a no-brainer for me.
Yeah.
Afterwards, after accepting that I won't be able to do international relations or mass comm.
It's true. So we actually went to the same employer right after our graduation day. I remember the confidence we had sending out CVs in corporate clothes, realizing later that day it was only to hand our CVs to the security guards. So when we had the interview, if you can remember, what department did you see yourself working in?
So it seems like I didn't have much choice in life, no, when I would answer these questions. But that's true. Um, in my circumstance, I really didn't have much like I didn't have the privilege to be choosy or to be picky. So when we were applying, I still remember um I think it was one of your friends who was driving us around. Do you remember that friend?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so that we could like drop off our resumes, and we got the phone call from Shangri-La, and then before that, okay, magbisaya sad pud ko, no? Kaya I know like there are a lot of viewers ng Bisaya sad.
Yeah.
Ganun, anyway, before we were just passing our resume, but then like before the interview, you also need to fill out another form. So it's more. like catered to what the company really require. So in that form, there was like, oh, what are the top three departments that you would like to work in? And I felt like at the time, when you're a fresh graduate and coming from like, I felt like, oh, but I didn't really have much uh
Experience.
I felt like I didn't have much, not just experience, but like voice as to like to demand like where
Ah,
I
yeah.
would
Uh,
I would work.
yeah.
So I just need to work afterwards, and I need to have a job,
Yeah.
especially in my situation. Like, um, I
Yeah.
can't just I had no one to rely to after graduation, so I really needed to find a job afterwards.
Mm.
So I didn't put anything, but in the back of my mind, I always wanted to work in sales, but I didn't have the confidence to write that down. I didn't have that
Mm.
belief in myself to write it down. So mo to siya, wala ra ko'y gibutang kay di man to kapili work at the time in my mind. So that was the
Lagi.
mindset I had.
Lagi. Naadyo na inana nga impression. Labi na nga coming from a small hometown. Yeah. The competitions, applicants kay. There are people coming from universities, large universities, especially already in Cebu. Nga, yeah, kita
Mm.
murag. No, we cannot choose or like, ayo pagpili-pili na pag arte-arte kung unsa trabaho yatag si mo ka na lang murag ginana jud nga impression.
Mo ang good pwede ka ng mga voices around you bitaw, or not really voices around you, but like the voices that you create in your head because of the lack of confidence.
Yeah.
But eventually, like maybe that would be something that it's not a regret, but more of like it is part of our growth. Like you
Mm.
learn to be more to believe in yourself, to be more confident. But yeah, without that journey, sad pod nga, I'll take whatever I can. It's also a humbling experience.
Yeah, it's true. So, can you share to us about your time in Shangri-La and your career growth within the company?
Oh, so after the interview, we were actually luckily. So I no before graduation, we already had Shangri-La exposure
Mm.
because that's where we had the OJT. But it wasn't really a guarantee that you would get a job afterwards.
Yeah.
So we still tried, but the OJT was in Boracay.
Mm.
But this time, wa mo tayo kaila sa Boracay. Work na ako, work. It didn't make sense nga mag-apply ko dito. Wala po ko'y kaila sa Cebu. But I knew someone who lived there, and it was like a part of my life at the time. So it was like, okay, it was an easy choice nga to find a job in Cebu. And thankfully, naapoy Shangri-La sa Cebu.
Mm.
And within the company, of course, like you start man jud nga kanang probationary for 6 months. I started as a lobby host.
Mm.
So, kung ano din siya, i-urge ka mag-welcome a guests and like guide them to where they want to go. It was a simple task, but I really take pride in what I was doing. I enjoyed it because I really enjoyed interacting inside with different people. So after 6 months, thankfully na regularized as a company, and I joined because lobby host was part of the guest relations department. So
Mm.
I joined the guest relations team. So lahi na po siya responsibilities. It's not just like welcoming guests or guiding them. Like so I needed to learn that to how to check in, to check out, handle different complaints, different
Mm.
problems. Although you have your superiors, maikog sad ka nga kanang murag ipasa tanang questions, tanang complaints sa ila. So, and we were also trained to be able to handle that. In that scenario nga kanang dili bitaw ka mag rely lang nga kanang storya lang sa co-manager because you're trying to avoid
Mm.
giving that unpleasant experience to the guests.
Mm.
So I'm very grateful for that training kay
Mm.
like you as a hotelier, 'di ba? Nga it really changes the experience magud pod with as a guest, as a client, kung pasapasahon ra ka even bisag dili ka sa hotel. Just imagine if naakag restaurant or anywhere, then ipasa-pasa ka sa imo ang concern, which is sometimes gamay ra kay kag concern pero ipasa pa kag kanang
Mm,
lain.
mm,
It ruins the whole experience for you. And when it comes to like five-star companies, as much as they put focus on like the hardware, nga
mm,
kanang ang facilities, imong room, they really give more importance towards like the service jud kay mo man ang differentiation
mm,
nimo
mm.
with other competitors nga hotel.
Oh.
So mo na love be host, and then I was in guest relations and medyo ambisyosa man ko. I tried out to apply kanang corporate management trainee nila.
Ah,
So
yes.
they have this program
Program.
in Shangri-La. I tried to apply and test, interview. Unfortunately, wala ko na dawat sa program. It was a really good program kay you really get to train in all departments of the hotel, of the company.
Mm,
And then they had at the time na apay Shangri-La Academy in China. So you go to Shangri-La Academy and ano bitaw nga kanang you get to meet other corporate trainees from different parts of the world, and you get to be educated about the whole hotelier not just operations but like the business side. So it was really like aninduta kaya anong experience. I would want
mm.
that, so apply ko pero mata na dawat. So but we didn't stop there.
Yeah. No.
So after adto, I didn't lose hope nga wala na ko'y chance or unsa. In my mind, like, okay, kung dili ko madawat sa corporate trainee, then maghimo lang ko kagalingon ako program sa akong kagalingon. Mag cross-training na lang ko sa laing departments, ang ana bitaw. Or
Bitaw.
mga apply ko sa laing departments.
Oh.
And eventually, naa may opening sa sales. A year after ko
Shit.
na regularize, nag-open ang position sa sales as a sales coordinator. And part of my career plan for myself na mo try out sa tanang department. And I was also really interested.
Mm.
Okay, at the time I was with operations, 'di ba?
Yeah. Mm.
Guest relations. So operation side siya. And I was curious about the business side of the company. So I took the chance to apply na sad with the sales department. And thankfully,
Mm.
nasell na ko akong self sa sales.
So, sales coordinator na human sa guest relation.
uh, nag-sales coordinator ko. And then, kalimot ko, it's a year or a year and a half after, I was promoted as a sales executive
Mm.
by my boss, Sir Abet, Sir Charlie. Thank
Shout
you,
out.
Char. To handle the corporate accounts.
Mm.
So corporate accounts, so example like Shangri-La Mactan, they're based in Cebu.
Mm.
So all the companies in Cebu, majority sa ilang mga VIPs ila man na ipang check-in o kanang five-star jud nga kanang properties.
Mm.
So mo to kong role basically to keep in touch with these companies and build relationship with them,
Mm.
not just to get like kanang rooms man jud ko, not just to get room nights like from there, like if they would have VIPs, like we would be the top choice like ano. But also like the events, because there would be like a lot of like mga meetings or annual nga kanang parties or team building and
Mm.
ano. So at the core it was really like maintaining the relationship with different corporate accounts,
Yeah.
aside from like just like selling your products.
Mm.
At the end of the day, it's really relationship building and strengthening,
Mm. Bitaw.
the way I see it.
Yeah. So, how was it like having a stable job at a young age?
It was, of course, like you feel secure, diba? It
Mm.
was comforting to know that you would have health insurance nga kailangan ng company and they're very generous with it. Although wala kay nako nagamit ako health insurance kas ara. Which is good. At least
Mm.
healthier ako. So naay security, naay stability. You have like opportunities to grow because like for my position that wasn't like the end position. There's still like opportunities for us to still be promoted
Mm.
in a sense, like as a young
Yeah.
professional, I
Yeah.
was able to achieve a lot of my personal goals
Mm.
because I had a stable job.
Yeah.
You like knowing that you would have salary the next month,
Yeah.
like
Mm.
he can really like sort of like count on that. It was a good experience, but I also had other things in mind.
Maybe that would answer my next question. When did you realize that you have to leave the career that you've already established in the hotel industry?
I there was no significant nga kanang murag. I woke up one day and then
Yeah.
I realized that
Mm.
I'm not I'm not happy or whatever in this career anymore. It was really more of it was a build up of different circumstance, and I guess also at that age manggod, like at 20 what 21, 22,
Mm.
23, for us we tried to seize every opportunity that we had. But then you don't really figure everything out at that age, even until now.
Yeah.
We still haven't figured everything out. So I was doing a lot of thinking and reflection and a lot of influence as well. Because it's also like my interest, like from the people I follow na kanang mag-travel, ingana. So I had influence from like externally, but because it was also my interest.
Mm.
So kung di po na ko siya interest, I wouldn't have that much push bitaw na okay, I will leave the job. So when I decided to resign, it was not really like I didn't have a stressful day. It was a regular day. I was on my way to the client. I was in the car and walang naka-feel ako nga I need to be somewhere else.
Mm.
And it wasn't like I just felt it that day,
Yeah.
but it was a brewing na bit ang emotion,
Mm.
na feeling, not just emotion, because like you also have to think logically when it comes to like a career change.
Mm.
So it's been a brewing na thought. So mga 2 years sad siya nga kanang naa na jud nga ang thought nga I wanted to go on a sabbatical, but I'm not rich. How can I do a year-long sabbatical? Ingana, I'll
Mm.
follow pa travel bloggers who've done it. Ingana, I'll read their stories. How did they do it? I even emailed them. Yeah, how did you do it? So that was like 2 years before I resigned because I already had that curiosity bitaw
Yeah.
to explore.
Mm.
But the time nga ni decide jud ko nga mo resign, there was nothing significant that happened. Nga murag stress na ko, or there was like a very kinang bad experience.
Mm.
Na feel na jud ako siya, and then on that weekend I thought na murag okay, Monday if dili ko mo pass sa akong resignation, then I would have to stick with this job.
Yeah.
Marag mo gihatag akong deadline ang
Mm.
kagalingon.
And this
Like,
time,
so
how many years nakaato sa siyang?
5 years. Naka-reach na ako 5 years.
So my next question would be, was Vietnam the first choice of country that you wanted to explore, and why?
Um, actually, when I resigned, I didn't really have plans. I just knew I wanted to be somewhere. I just knew I wanted to, at that time, find myself. As if nawala ko. um, di po siya identity crisis. Kalimut ko. Anyway, so
Anyway.
na ako yung ato nga crisis.
Uh,
So, I responded and I wanted to find the answers to that. Yan. So, what you kay plan? Ang ako alang is na ako, ang security lang jud nako is like, I've already worked with the company for 5 years.
yeah.
I took the risk of resigning,
Mm.
knowing that if everything goes south, I can come back and
Yes.
apply.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with the same company, but if I would, I'm
Mm.
not sure if I would be able to, but I could still come back and like do the same job because
Yeah.
I already have
The
my
experience.
5 years experience. So moora jud ang nakahatag jud pud nako kanang more confidence to resign and heed the calling nga
Yeah.
magkuan ko mag-explore. And Vietnam wasn't like a choice that I consciously like I really planned it. Okay, ang akong plano ato is like I'll just backpack na ako'y gamay nga savings, mag-backpacking
Ah,
ko
yes.
ing ana
I
kid.
remember. Yes, I remember. But when did you actually departed from the day that you resigned? Like how long did it took you?
May, kalimot ko, 23, 24, around that time. Akong last day.
Mm.
And I left the Philippines to Vietnam June 28, 2017.
Ah,
Oh, so 1 month,
yeah,
1 month ra.
yeah.
Like all I knew was that mag-backpacking ko. My option was like Thailand or Vietnam. Vietnam was part of the choice because it was Hanoi, actually
Mm.
specifically Hanoi,
Mm.
was like the next travel destination that I wanted to go to
Mm.
because my best friend visited the place and nagchika siya na ako nga, ala, nindot kayo dito, dagan kayong cafe. So niya, hilig mo kong mga cafe-cafe. Kung
Ah, yes.
so, gi-appeal ako siya sa option, like Thailand or Hanoi. And then based on my research, I felt nga murag safer bitaw ang Hanoi.
Mm.
Kay mas daghan magugong kanang articles nga nabasa about like kanang security with regards to Thailand. So I felt like murag mas safe pa tingaling Hanoi kay murag wala kay daghang kanang murag news nga kanang
Ah.
nawala or namatay. Murag so logical or gyapon ako thinking. Naguna-una or gyapon ko tarong.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't discourage anyone from traveling just because of reading like bad news or like being safe is a very like you can be anywhere in the world and you would still feel unsafe. It depends on how you use your common sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the time, ko Hanoi, I didn't really know anyone here. Ano bitaw?
That would be my next question. What was it like searching for a job at a foreign country as a foreigner?
I I didn't really know anyone. And ang akong plan adto kay with my savings, realistically, I
Mm.
would just be able to survive a month. Marking ana bitaw, a month.
Wow.
For me, it was like, nah, maybe a month would be like, like it would be enough time to find myself. Deadline pod. Find yourself in 1 month, no?
Mm.
Nga ako na ako marag, shorter man kay ang usa ka bulan oy. So mas maayo ning kining marag what are the ways that I could lengthen my soul searching journey and so based on kining ako sang pag research there was already an option to volunteer while you are traveling.
Mm.
So I decided, okay, I will just volunteer since I have the time, I have the energy to do so. I'm not traveling to see places
Mm.
nga kanang murag mag sightseeing ko nga, oh, I need to go here, to go there, to see this beautiful mountain or to see this thing and to go to the beach or what. It
Mm.
was really more of like an inner journey bitaw. But
Mm.
then gimaterialize na ko siya in a physical sense nga ni
Mm.
travel jud ko. So when I shared my plans to my sister nga,
Yeah.
oh, kanang pag maadto kog Hanoi,
Mm.
when I arrived there, mag-search na, mag-google na ko daan kung unsay mga NGOs which I can volunteer. Mo akong plan.
Mm.
So nakaplan ako, I'll go to Hanoi, mag-volunteer, like, I'll go to NGOs, and I'll just show up in their offices. But I'll show up in their offices and tell them I have time. Do they need a volunteer? But unya murag, in fairness, ako sister, she's also kind of like well versed man said with this kind of traveling. So siya may nag-advise ako about it's called Workaway. So
Mm.
it's basically like a work exchange program. You don't get paid for it, but you get food sometimes, but definitely accommodation.
Mm.
So with the accommodation, wala na ako. Di na ako problema like expenses where would I was sleeping and bitaw.
Bitaw.
And thankfully, ang organization nga akong nakita, it's a website. Ang organization, they offer food and bed in
Mm.
exchange of conversations with adult students. So
Mm.
I had no idea about ESL industry. Like it was new to me when I arrived here. When I came
Yeah.
here, I was like, oh, but I'm not a teacher, like I came from sales background and
Yeah.
an organization. So it's okay. It's just we're trying to help out the students, adult students, to sort of like they practice their English, and basically that's your role, that they could practice English with you.
Mm.
So it was teaching, but in a very informal way. So that's how I sort of like, it wasn't really like I didn't really come here with the intent of finding a job, but more of like finding myself.
So,
So far, did I find myself?
so how is the shift or change of the workplace, colleagues, environment felt like on your first few months in Hanoi?
It was very different because when it comes to colleagues, it's like number one, it's a very different industry. I am
Yeah.
not working in the hospitality anymore. I
Mm.
was volunteering, so everything like I was in sales. Like I still remember before nga, I used to get called out like, Michelle, you're in sales. You're not like a charity, like kind of mag-negotiation now with my clients. You're in sales. You're not in charity. And then I ended up nga kanang nag-volunteer. So it was like a complete 180 degrees bitaw nga kanang turn.
Mm.
And it was really fun because they're not really my colleagues, but more of my friend because I was with other volunteers. We were living in one apartment, and at
Mm.
one point, like there would be like 8 of us in the apartment, or even like 10 of us. It depends. So sometimes they would be moved to another apartment, but it was really fun because like you get to meet different people from all over the world,
Mm.
and they sort of like have the same intention bitaw nga, to volunteer. So in that way, you also have like the same mindset because they're volunteering and they're traveling,
Mm.
and you get to learn a lot from each other, and like to see and to hear different perspectives,
Mm.
and to be able to understand your differences and to accept that bitaw. Yeah, it's very diverse, and to accept that there are differences but also still be able to hold your own.
Yeah.
Na kasi it's very easy to get swayed into different like lahi man mong ideologies, lahi man mong
Yeah.
principles, kay
Oo.
lahi man mong giagian ning ana bitaw. It's very easy to get swayed, and if you don't really reflect on what they're trying to say, or
Mm.
if you don't really process it properly bitaw, or does it align with my own values, does it align with my principle. And most often than not, it's like they don't. But it doesn't mean nga that they're a bad person.
Yeah.
It's just that you just have different views in
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of it. It was really fun. Like the working environment, I was teaching adults, so it was really like I always look forward to my classes.
Mm.
Okay, there was no stress. It was
Mm.
chica. As you can see, I'm so tabian right now.
Yeah. At some point, have you ever thought of going back to the Philippines?
I think we're nagtabi kung puntaan, you know. Going back to the Philippines, of course, like to visit, diba? That's for sure, for sure. I'd want to go home to visit. Um, but in terms of like settling down, I can't say I would settle down here in Hanoi. I can't also say that I'll settle down in the Philippines.
Mm.
I still have a lot of things that I would want to see myself accomplish.
Yeah.
And there
With
are two scenarios that I could see myself na mo settle down ko sa Philippines.
ah.
One is if I would come up with like I don't know, a business idea
Mm.
back home, or if I marry someone from the Philippines. Right now, the two are quite far off. Or not gonna happen anytime soon.
An
Ikaw, Kat.
expat. Hmm? Me for
Ikaw,
now,
Kat.
well, I think as an expat, especially like me, I lived abroad for about 8 years now. And you can really see that there's infinite opportunities. There's infinite places to
Mm,
choose from. Like for me, Philippines will always be there. Obviously, like it will be a home. Like
mm,
it's a comfort place.
mm,
Nga, I can always go
mm,
home. Nga. Well, ideally, if there was no COVID, it would be ideal to go home every year. But
mm,
to settle in Philippines, not yet. It's even settling here. I don't know yet. I'm still at that phase where we'll never know.
I'm open.
Yeah, but to move from one place to the other is a very interesting experience that I've learned. I lived
Mm,
in the Middle East for 5 years. Now 2 years in France, and it's very different culture, very different lifestyle also. Even from Middle East or Philippines or here, it's really three different lifestyles also. And
mm.
I like it. I enjoy it. I get to meet people from different lives. But the thought of going home, it's obviously very good, especially if we are able to see our family and friends and reunion, and hopefully soon after COVID we would all love to see each other again in the Philippines.
Bitaw. Atong bridal showers, ani.
Yeah.
Not cats, okay? But we have our own plans. And not mine either.
We have our own.
We have a different plan. Maybe watch out for it.
Yeah, I should be able to vlog that if that will happen. I see in your Instagram stories how sweet your students are. Can you share us a couple of your memorable moments while teaching in class?
Oh, char. Actually, I really enjoy being and not just teaching, but like being with my students because
Mm.
they really keep me younger. Because I also allow myself to, be silly or what. But like, there's a lot of sweet moments, but I think there would be one that would stand out. It's in one of my kindergarten classes, and I had this 5-year-old kid. His name's Baukang. Siya na ako nga, like, he just approached me eh. Siya nga kanang, teacher, magdala ko og kanang akong stuffed toy tomorrow. Anya kaya nga ako ang schedule sa ila di man everyday. Like
Mm.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? Nga na bitaw. Ko nga, no, you don't need to bring it tomorrow because teacher won't be here. You bring it on Monday. And ano pa siya kanang, okay, teacher. Then ako naman, kabo ka siya unsay Monday, Tuesday, kabo sa Vietnamese, nga kanang pag unsay ngalan sa days bitaw. And it's so interesting kay ang ngalan nila sa day diri kay day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Ang ana bitaw.
Ah,
Right,
what
dili siya Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
okay.
Ha? What just happened? Oh, ang day 1 kay Sunday. Dili ba siya Monday? Day 1, day 2, ang ana. Ako nga, marag, nya niingon mo kanya, bring it on Monday. Kaya mo ko kabaw sa Vietnamese food nila ng day 1, day 2. kabaw ka siya unsang Monday. How can I as a teacher explain what is Monday bitaw nga without using the Vietnamese translation?
Mm.
Kung ako nang ano po ko niya do you know what day it is today?
Mm.
Okay, at least ma-explain, ma-breakdown ako sa iya nga pila ka days na lang, Monday
Mm.
na, nga na kung
Oo.
kabaw siya unsa nga day. Do you know what day it is today, bawo kang? And ladaw ra siya nako, tutok ra siya nako. Siya nga, today is a beautiful day. Ko, cute kayo, these
Oo.
are the moments where, no, like a child sees this.
Mm.
Maybe like wala lang sa yung vocabulary, but it reminds you to
Mm.
be more like observant bitaw.
Mm.
Maybe for me it was just like a normal day. It was a Friday. Ano ba? A Friday, but for this child it was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And for whatever reasons it was for him, it was like these are the kind of like kanang interactions bitaw nga makes me really appreciate being in the presence of these kids. I
Mm.
teach like from babies, like 2 years old to adults.
Mm.
But lately, I've been more focused on like kanang sa kids nga classes and to teenagers.
Mm.
Kaya mas stable man ang classes nila.
Mm.
And the more that I enjoy their company, the more that I learn from them too.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that's nice. And lastly, what advice can you give to the young students today, especially in the midst of this pandemic, about their future career plans or in their studies that they're taking?
I would say like I don't really want to prescribe any specific solution
Mm.
or like, oh, this is the right way
Mm.
or this is the right job, this is what you do, like you do it as I did, because
Mm.
we have very different circumstances, we have very different responsibilities. I'm able to do what I'm doing right now because I have a different situation. I'm not saying that not everyone, I'm not saying that it's you can't do it, like anyone can do it, but I'm also aware that we have different obligations, we have different like goals.
Yeah.
So there's really no specific solution. I don't want to prescribe any of that because it's going to come down to your circumstances, like where you come from and where do you want to go. So maybe I would just like say, if you can experiment and try, if you can,
Yeah.
it will help you make a much more calibrated decision in the long term, because you're allowing yourself to try like different things, and you would know nga kanang, okay, I tried this out, it didn't work for me.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
when you're younger, you have time on your side.
Correct.
But like, I'm not saying na when you're older you don't have time on your side,
Mhm.
but like our responsibilities and obligation
Mm.
increases.
True.
It depends on how your life goes, when you're in your 30s or your 40s. But even for people like that are in that age, if you can experiment and try gihapon, like what you're doing right now, you're
Yeah.
vlogging, diba?
Yes,
Diba?
it never stops. Yeah.
Yeah, it never stops.
Mm.
And I guess for like younger students, like there's no need to rush the big decisions,
Mm.
because there are many ways to be successful in life. And as long as you explore and you're open to those possibilities, that's when you sort of like find out what you really respond to.
Mm.
Because sometimes you might try to follow one path that is already like, oh, there are a lot of people already done this, and this is like success, this is the idea of success. But really there's
Yeah.
no
Mm.
there's no one definition of success.
Mm.
If you ask different people, you would have different answers as well.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, you define what success is. And for me, it's more of like being able to explore and try out like different versions of you,
Mm.
and being open to those opportunities. then that's more of the world that I would want personally to live in, instead of like doing what I have to do to sort of like fit into society's definition of success.
Yeah, correct.
So
That's true.
no need to rush big decisions. Experiment, try,
Mm.
and that's my advice. Experiment and try. If you can. If you can. That's also can I disclaimer, if you can. There's also a very deeper explanation why I would always have that if you can disclaimer.
Yeah. Also, we've mentioned before to normalize nga just because you've reached this age, you've had it all already planned nga by 30, inani na ka nga position sa imong career, or inani na ka successful, or inani na ka nga age ma-married, inana. Also to normalize nga we all have different phases. Lahi-lahi man ato ang moments, lahi-lahi man nga age pod nga naiuban ni na nga successful, pero that doesn't mean you have to be at the same age ngayon ana sa ka dapat successful. So don't pressure yourself too much with the society's expectations.
I think it's easier manggod to follow that murag certain nga murag, okay, by 30 this is how it should look like. It's easier to follow that because kung kabantay ka when we were not day one, but like from kindergarten to university. And that's the life that we grow up with, diba? We've always received feedback.
Yeah.
We've always received nga kanang we know our grade based on our performance. Naabit ang feedback from our teachers, whether it's good or bad, whether nga kanang nakapasar ka, top 1 ka, or balik-balik ka, grade 4, na-adjoy feedback. But once you graduate university, aside from company, like kanang murag yearly review for you, wala na bitaw kailaing source of feedback.
Yeah.
By default, ang nahimong murag validation or like review sa imong annual performance review. Na magani term di ba? Na ang nahimong replacement sa grades nato o comments from teachers. Nahimo ang kanang promotions. I'm like a very high position in whatever company, and I do have respect for that, especially if that's really your passion.
Yeah.
Or I have this car na, I have this house na, I have these stuff na at like this age, because that has been like the benchmark na mas dali bitaw nato i-evaluate atong performance kung i-benchmark po nato ko galingon sa kung unsa may gi-accept na sa kadaghanan.
Bitaw.
So I think maupod na kanang murag, but then it also comes down to murag, we only hear that. I don't really believe that it is what the majority think what success would look like. It's just amplified by media. Because like you, me, we have our different idea of success. It's not necessarily what we think it is. So I'm sure there are a lot more people who have that kind of thoughts towards it. Kind of going back, don't rush on making a big decision, especially if the big decision involves in what you think success would look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
For society.
Society. Correct. That's true. Well, thank you very much, May. Thank you for joining me in my pilot episode here of this new segment of mine, Catching Up with My Friends. You can also check out her podcast. I will link it down below in the description box. She had a podcast with her friend about her childhood years. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Like and subscribe to Amazing Katrinajane.
Merci.
Bye.
Thank you.